Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu salam ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. My brothers and sisters, today I'm going to embark on a topic again of the Sahel, but in the African state of Ghana. And I'm making my rounds through this Sahel region to talk about each country and what is happening with the Fulani. Let me give you my felicitations. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Lil-Ikhwani Ikhwati fi Din. Assalamu ala mani taba'hula. Lil-Ikhwani Ikhwati fi Afrika, Europa, America, Caribbean, wa kulli makan. Halim wa salim bikum. Anjarama to my community, Fulbi community. And Ghana presents a different scenario of things that we have not actually talked about. They have no real active jihad going on in this particular state. And there's a number of reasons why. It's not quiet like Mauritania, but on the same token, there are smoldering underlying currents there in it. And I'll cover some of that. And if you notice that my marquee, the G5, this is the surrounding Sahel states, the Western Sahel states, and they have a military force that they have amalgamated through all these particular countries to combat, quote unquote, terrorism. They are funded by the West, in particular. Americans have a hand in it, as you already know. You've seen the last 3 weeks. I've talked about this extensively. The U.S. Congress have shown that they are funding these types of programs. In Ghana, we have a different situation, a different animal all in itself. And what is interesting is the Fulani leadership in Ghana has been instrumental in keeping the young brothers from joining into an active jihad in Ghana. It's not the security forces. It's not the police. It's not the government officials of Ghana that's keeping them at bay, or the president. What's keeping them at bay are our religious Islamic leaders, the I guess what you call the lobby groups of the Fulani, especially the Tabata Pulaku International. They're very instrumental in this and advocating for our Fulani people. And so they are instrumental in keeping the Fulani youth from actually going on to attack and making jihad, or bringing in brothers from elsewhere to begin to attack. Now, they've had skirmishes. I will get into this with law enforcement and with the farmers and so forth and so on. They have that. But I want to play something for you. I'm hoping that you can hear it. I'm not a computer wizard, and I don't have anybody hired yet to help me in this regard. But you'll get the gist of this by looking at this.
Are the Fulanis better than us? Can they shoot better than us? Can they do the military and police job more than us? They say they are guerrilla tactics, they are guerrilla fighters, and they are going to ambush you and shoot you. Please, I beg you in the name of God, nobody should die in the bush as a police or soldier or whatever. We are going back with our number and come back with our number. And to be safe, if you see anybody holding arms, want to attempt you, please don't waste time.
Okay, my brothers and sisters, if you could listen to what the brother had said, this is a policeman, and they're about ready to go to take on the Fulani herdsmen, who have been involved in skirmishes with the farmers. This particular incident led to some of these policemen being shot and killed when they came to attack the Fulani herdsmen in northern part of Ghana. And we have seen killings from about 2010 to the present, 30 here, 20 here, 50 here. And these killings have not stopped. Cattle have been wrestled away from Fulani, and as well, we've had horrendous murders. And we have brothers instrumental in trying to bring the case to the public so they can get an understanding of the problems that our people face there in Ghana. And what I find interesting also in this is that I'm gonna try to find it here, where we got the, okay, boy, I don't see where, okay, where is it? Okay. We have a Fulani brother who's very instrumental. He writes articles, very, very bright Fulani brother who is instrumental in trying to get the Ghana government to understand the plight. He's an expert in security. And he talks about this issue of the Fulani inside Ghana. And if you don't do the right things, we can have a full-fledged jihad. And I want to read something that he had made a comment about. Here, approximately about 7 months ago, he wrote this article talking about the Ghanaian forces and what has happened. Let me give you something. The barbaric, they talk about terrorism, but when it gets to when they're killing Fulani, it's not. And even if it's barbaric, I told you last week how barbaric forces killed, beheaded children, Fulani children, okay, in front of this brother to send him a message. Here he talks about an attack. He said a mob, this mob that they talk about in Ghana, northern part of Ghana, okay, in the northern part of Ghana, he said that there was a mob of 100. They attacked and killed nine Fulanis, okay, at Zokoli. This is in northern part of the suburb of Yendi. Some of the victims were shot. Now listen to this. Listen to this, brothers and sisters. But they don't call this terrorism. They were shot at close range. And others were burnt alive. Remember the days of the African Americans when the Tubob would get us and he would burn us alive? You remember they would take the brother and lynch him, and right before he died, they would get him and throw him into a fire and roast him like he was a pig. This is what they did here in this particular case 7 months ago to Fulanis. The police, he says here, didn't arrest anybody. Not a single arrest was done. Not even a statement was issued by the police in regards. The Fulbe community went to the police and said, do something about it. Our esteemed brothers of the Tabata Polako International, who's the main governing body of our Fulani people, went to them and asked them to do an investigation. They didn't do anything. They let this particular incident to occur. And our brother also went on to talk about other issues in this situation. And what I find very interesting too is he wrote another article, and we have brilliant Fulani scholars, brothers and sisters among my African community and plus my Fulbe community. We have brilliant young scholars. They should be protected. They should be honored for their scholarship. And we have to protect them from the evil forces from the West and from our hypocrite leaders and their governments, because they kill brothers like this on the behalf of the Western forces. And this brother here is forefront of explaining to the government the ramifications of their action. And he does it in an extremely intelligent way. And he talks about the group becomes violent when they have been alienated. What has happened to the Fulani is disgrace. It reminds me of the African Americans in the United States, how they have been disenfranchised. You know, the African Americans did not become full-fledged, quote unquote, citizens till 1965. Even though we had entered the shores in 1607, some say 1619, but in the early 1600s, all the way to 1965, we were not citizens, quote unquote, of the United States. We have Ghanaians who have been, Fulani Ghanaians who have been in this region since the early 1800s. And they're still not regarded as Ghanaian. So he talks about this issue and whatnot. And this marginalization of the Fulanis in Ghana is a national security threat, because everybody understands the jihad of the Fulani. If you listen to what this policeman said, he said, are the Fulanis better than us? This is what we hear from the G5 forces all through the Sahel, who hate us. And they talk about the Fulbe community, and they always make comments. The Fulani think that they're better than us. The Fulani think they're more richer than us. The Fulani think they have a better culture than us. The Fulani think that they have a better language than us. The Fulani people don't mix with us. We hear these limitations coming from security forces and experts and government officials alike, talking about the Fulani people. This type of talk leads to what has been happening in this case here, brothers and sisters, where out of sheer anger, this mob of 100 went to attack defenseless Fulanis and killed 9 of them. Okay, and then shot the others at close range and then burnt the rest of them who they could find alive. See, because of this type of talk that's coming from, in this particular case, from Ghanaian officials. See, so when we look at this in retrospect, there's a Frenchman who has a think tank, and he wrote good. We have to give credit. He's a Tubab. We have to give credit when credit is due, because not all Tubab historians and scholars are racist. Not all. And they may have racist tendencies, but they report and give analysis as they see it, without adding to their own maybe racial hatred and animus toward Black folk. He says here, the abuses of the G5 soldiers in the Sahel could threaten international support, because, again, he's exposing they are being supported by the West. The West have the heavy hand in this. Every bullet that is given, every mob and militia who go to kill, the West their hands is bloodied, because they support these guys here to kill Fulani in Ghana, in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Niger, all these special, and in Nigeria as well. All of them share in the murder of the Fulani people, and they're being backed by Western forces. And because they've been exposed, this writer here talks about the international support, that because they've been exposed, their hands are dirty. So they don't know how to hide their dirty hands, because they're funding these guys, arming them and funding them and giving them like they're dogs, like attack dogs. They give them an order, you attack the Fulani, and they go and do it based upon their leaders who give them small money. This man right here is probably making pennies a day in US money, pennies a day. While the big man who make the orders to order him to go kill is making 3 times, 4 times, 500% more money than this guy is making. And so this is issues, brothers and sisters, that we have to look at. And this here, the identity citizenship and the Fulani in Ghana, brothers and sisters, again, this sounds like white racism, Tuba hatred and racism for black folk. But this is black folk on black folk. This is in Africa. This is not Alabama. This is not Mississippi in the United States. This is not Paris, France, or Brixton, London, okay, or London, none of that. Or in Sweden, or any other places where they harbor animus, racial animus toward black folk. This is Ghanaian politics. These are black folk, black brothers, who are denying other black brothers citizenship. Now, some will say, well, Ghana's leading this. Let me tell you something. Ghana been recently given hand-picked African Americans, okay, citizenship. Mostly feeble, African Americans, Caribbeans. Younger folks are it's elusive for them. Generally speaking, Africans still won't give other Africans citizenship. It's ridiculous. But a Tuba gets it. A Chinese can get it. The Russian can get it. But other black brothers cannot. This has been exposed. The identity citizenship in Fulani in Ghana, they are denied citizenship. Our Fulani brothers, they've been in Ghana and they have 5, 6 generations now, been in Ghana all this time. And they're denied citizenship. This here, we can't blame the Tubab. Yes, the Tubab is sitting in the back because it's him who barked their orders out. It's him who has the security agreements with this is why I get mad when I see YouTube, our African leaders get up here and talk against the West. But yet they maintain the security agreements with the West, namely the United States, and they give them orders. They tell them to attack. They tell them to go after strong Muslims. They tell them to go after certain groups, knowing full well that a jihad will occur. After this jihad has happened, they go off. Look what has happened in Mali. The Americans went in there and added by telling them to go after the Tuareg, the Afro Tuareg, to go after the Afro Arabs and go after the Fulani in Mali. When it became a full-fledged jihad, what happened to the Americans? They left. Burkina Faso, the same thing. In Niger, basically the same thing. They bark out orders. You do this. You kill them. You interdict them. And then once it becomes a full-fledged jihad, they're gone. That is devilish. That is devilish politics. See, that's devilish. And our leaders, that's why when they get on YouTube, I want to tell them, brother, you talking good about you don't want the US dollar, or you hard on them. No, you're not, because they're still running your countries behind the scenes. And we still have stuff like this. And the president of Ghana met with the Fulani groups, and why he didn't resolve this. This was no more than a couple of months back. Why he didn't resolve this issue, but he didn't. So I'm giving you stuff, brothers and sisters, as it is. Let me see our brothers and sisters here. King, how you doing, dear brother? Salam alaikum. And Renat, how you doing? Brazil, how you doing, my dear brother? Salam alaikum. Anzarama, my dear brother. Thank you for showing up from Brazil. Thank you very much, brother. Yes, my brother here, he said again, we need to remove the Tuba. Yes, it's the root of all evil, brothers and sisters. That is definitely our brother here. Brothers, give our salam here to our dear brother here from Brazil. King, thank you, my dear brother. You always been supporting me, and I really appreciate it, my dear brother, a lot. How you doing, Eagle Mindset Fitness? I'm very saddened. Yes, my dear brother, this is a very, 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 very disheartening situation that's going on in Ghana. It's atrocious, and this is black on black crime. Has none. The Tuba is sitting in the background, yes, but the Tuba is not pulling the trigger. The Tuba, the black man has enough to where he can tell no to these people, but they don't. And you saw that caption. You saw the fervor of the security force. This is a black man talking about going to do in other black people. See, and this is really a very, very disheartening situation, brothers and sisters. Very disheartening. And I don't know, and I never wish for war, because as Muslims, we have a prohibition from our Prophet ﷺ. This is why we have the thing we call Nia, the intention. Remember, the Muslims are governed by the intention. When we go outside, we don't go with the intention to make war. We don't go outside the intentions to go fight. Even I, because of what has happened here, I have to watch my intention. They don't. They're not Muslims. Even though they profess to be Muslims, these guys are not Muslims out there. They've come to attack Muslims. I have to go by what the Prophet ﷺ said. I don't go outside. If my niyyah is to go to fight or to wish for fighting or to have contact with somebody, I'm wrong. I cannot do it because I don't have the authorization. You see, this is our laws. So I have to stay in because my niyyah is not right. If I have the niyyah to go make prayer and my niyyah is strictly for that, and then I encounter physical contact, that's different. But if I leave the house to go to make physical contact, in lieu of that, of the orders of our Prophet, it's sinful. This is why we have to be very careful, brothers and sisters, as Muslims. Very, very careful. So, as we talked about, the abuses has happened. The group talking about the Fulani, our Fulani brothers eloquently explained. If you guys can see these articles, get these articles in full from the Ghana web.com. They have some pretty good articles, and it's African, it's ours. So they're pretty forthcoming. Even they may have their own prejudices against the Fulani, but they at least give us the opportunity to speak, and they give us the opportunity for our scholars to talk about our issues. So you have to give the brothers and sisters of Ghana Web their kudos because they are letting us speak out. Like our brother here, Adib Sana, and him, he's talking a lot good. And also our president of the Tabata Polaku International. He has been on a lot of talk circuits talking about the plight of the Fulani as well. And so we have all of this. The marginalization of the Fulanis in Ghana, all these issues, brothers and sisters, is very important and why it's leading to jihad. But the leaders like our brother here and others from the Tabata Pulaku International, the Mayate Allah, all of these organizations, plus our esteemed scholars and headsmen and so forth, imams of the Fulani community have stopped an active jihad, which is good. Yes, they have skirmishes, but they have done something that no one else has been able to do in other places. They have stopped our people from going and joining jihad to go against the government forces and so forth, even though they're being slaughtered. See, so we have to give credit as due. There's no active jihad we know of today in Ghana, irrespective of things like this 7 months ago where Fulani were killed and burned like they were pigs. There's no active jihad. So that's the credit to our leadership there in Ghana, our Fulani leadership and our Fulani people there in Ghana as well. They have not taken up the sword to go to fight. There have been incidents, retaliation. But as our brother told, he said this retaliation is starting to happen more. He said the government has to do more to protect the Fulani community. And as everywhere else, you have no other choice. You come and you have 100 cattle and they come and the government forces come along with thugs and they come to take your cattle. That's your livelihood. You're gone. You know our rules as Fulani people. The cattle is our wealth. We take care of them. They're just like family in a lot of regard. We take care of them. We feed them. They know us. We know them. Okay. We have a special bond with our cattle. We know this. So therefore, when a foreigner comes and he takes the cattle and sells it, or he take the cattle and he butchers the cattle. This is what's going on in Ghana, but all through the Sahel brothers, sisters, this is the same situation. So now, let's get into some of this. Ghana has a long history of being caught in the middle of the Fula jihad. This is one of the problems, brothers and sisters, that you face everywhere in the Sahel region, is the retribution on the Fulani because they have been under their grandpappies have been under, and our brothers have been under somehow or another many times over centuries under Fulani leadership. And they didn't like it then, they don't like it now. That's why you heard that commander say, are the Fulanis better than us? See? So now it's time for retribution against us. So they have a long history. The Fula clans migrated to modern Ghana in the 1800s. This what makes this very interesting. They have been grazing, and I'll get into something very interesting about the situation in Ghana that's far different. But there's something that happened that we should go back to, but I don't know if we can do it because we have hypocrite government officials who are being paid off to cause more war and more anguish like this. Remember we talked about, and I'll get more into this Messina, the Messina brothers and sisters from the 1300s to the 1800s to the middle 1800s. This empire was going back and forth. I don't like to use empire, the Emirates. They were going back and forth in power for 500 or nearly 500 years, about 500 years, on and off through the region. They established code of regulations. Why? We didn't have this problem until recent. We've had code of regulations across the Sahel that monitored the farmers and herders. We had no problems. When the herders made mistakes, they made compensation. And the farmers made mistakes, they actually killed some cattle, they shouldn't have done it, then they paid compensation. This worked. Other areas in the region adapted these rules because they were under the Sharia law. Remember, I kept talking about this. We're in democratic ways and means now through Africa, period. And that's why it doesn't work, because it's man-made laws where they can change it any day they want. Here, they was working under Islamic law. They established a code of conduct between the farmers and the herders, or the Fulani herdsmen, and it was working. The other areas were under the Fulani Emirate. They had no choice, because under the Sharia law, they'll put you in jail for this, okay? If you violate the Sharia law, they have Hezbollah will come and get you and say, hey, Yahya, you're a farmer. We told you have an open agreement. This is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to let the Fulani herdsmen come to graze in this area here, and you cannot disturb them. Maybe I did something to cause a ruckus. They file a complaint with the Sharia court. They send the Hezbollah out. They come to get me, to bring me before the court to ask me, why did I do this? This is how the Sharia works. This is why this is the best system. Not this crap that we have now come with democratic ways and means. It doesn't work, brothers and sisters. It don't work. The Sharia law worked. At this time, this is in the late 1700s, this was implemented. So if the Fulani herdsmen violated by going deeper into the farmer's land, say they went and ate crops, the Fulani herdsmen could be arrested, or they were brought to court. The farmer would bring them to court, and the Hezbollah will come to bring them to court and ask you, why did you, Yahya, you had your cattle, you're not supposed to cross this boundary. Why did you cross the boundary of Muhammad over here and you ate his crops? You got to pay him. This worked beautifully. They had skirmishes here and there, brothers and sisters, but it worked. There was no full-fledged jihad as we see today. See? So this is a very interesting thing, and I'll give you something that a former president had to say about this. The Fulani trade areas were well established in northern Ghana. Again, brothers and sisters, the Fulani people are experts when it gets down to meat, cattle, from the cattle. Our cattle are raised very well. They are now in modern times vaccinated, yes, to prevent the tsetse fly and some other things like this. But the meat is very, very good because they graze off the savannah, and then in the Sahara region, okay, they do this. And the Sahel and the savannah, and then the Sahara, which is the desert. They eat from that. So the milk is good. They make cheese. They make all kinds of things. People depend on the Fulani, especially in the north regions, for the cheese and a plethora of things, dried meat, all that kind of stuff. We're experts in this, the Fulani, experts. And the meat is good. Dried beef and all this. Very, very good meat. And it's good and it's pure, okay? All this stuff is, was generated and trade. The Fulani will come into town. They will have dried meat. They have cheese. They have meat. Fresh meat that was slaughtered that day. They would have milk, curded milk, all kind of stuff. Okay, malted milk, all kind of stuff they would make. They would come in and trade what for goods, meaning cassava, dashing, banana. Coconuts, papaya. You see, this is how the system worked under the Sharia. It worked. The farmers were getting paid. The Fulani were getting paid. See, we don't have that now. Interesting, don't it? We don't have that now. But under the Sharia law, when under the Emirates, we had that. The farmers were wealthy, and our Fulani brothers were wealthy as well. See, it worked. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful system, brothers and sisters. We should go back to implement this. We should go back to implement this. But they won't do it because the Tubab is too strong in our lands and they bark out orders. And I told you, the Americans in particular have a hard on for the Fulani. No doubt about it. They want us eliminated, period. See? And it's not going to happen because I go by the Prophet, not by what they say. Yeah, they may kill me, they may kill you, or whatever. But the Fulani will continue to go because there's too many of us. We will continue to flourish in this land because it's ours. We have been here. This is our land. It's not theirs. So they can kill me. They can kill somebody over here. Or they can have a couple killed over here. But look what has happened with all the treachery from the West. Look at the jihad that they have created. This jihad is running everywhere now, and Americans can't even control it. It's like a wildfire. They can't put enough water. They don't have enough sand to stop this jihad. Because of their leadership, we have this active jihad in the Sahel region, plus our hypocrite leaders who followed the Tubab has caused this. I gave you something here that was working under the Sharia law. This here, the milk trading, the commodities were traded off between farmers and the town folk and our Fulani people. Beautiful system, beautiful system. Everybody prospered. Everybody prospered in the system. Why did our brothers disband this? Why did they disband this, brothers and sisters? Why? Why did they disband something beautiful like this where everybody prospered? When there's a violation of the Fulani who came into the farmers' region, they know there's a boundary. They are not to send their cattle in certain areas. They got spanked for it. When the farmers were angry and went and did something against the Fulani herders, because maybe they were close to the boundary and maybe they shot and killed a couple, say for instance, or they slain a couple cattle to take for themselves. I'm saying for instance, they were brought to justice as well and they had to pay compensation to the Fulani. But all the while they still had this trade going on and a beautiful trade. Everybody was eating. Everybody was eating well. See, and they lost that. In these regulations were compensation packages. Beautiful system for farmers by full of clans for overgrazing. If you know you understand our people when they graze, if they overgraze for too long, maybe they could graze up to 6 months. They know by history if they graze 7-8 months, they damage the grasslands. They won't come back during the rainy season. Say for instance, they may not come back as strong or they may come weaker. They understand the ecosystem. So they understand up to between 3 to 6 months, they can stay to a given area and let them eat. And then they move on because so that way the ground could recover. See, because now it's fertilized from the manure of the cattle and the rain comes. So when the rain comes and it fertilizes the ground, the grass comes high, thick, and nourishing. But if they graze 7, 8, 9 months, they may destroy that. What has happened, some of the clans overstayed. And according to the law, they had to pay compensation for that. See, this is a beautiful system. And everybody was happy. So overgrazing, farmland destruction of crops, and all that. Also agreement that remained the damaged crops after harvest. So now, here's the interesting thing too that worked. The farmers benefited from this, and our brothers, the Fulani brothers, the herdsmen benefit from this too, brothers and sisters. I know this may be mundane for some of our brothers and sisters, but let me ask you something. You should understand African history. We're not stupid. Our brothers and sisters manufactured laws that were just. The reason why the laws are not just now because they're following the Tubab. Think about this, brothers and sisters. They're following the Tubab, and the Tubab is the devilish. Not all, but these Western governments are devilish. And when you follow them, you follow the devil. You see these type of laws like this, we created that. The Tubab didn't. We created these types of laws that protected everybody. And then when the Tubab got in between there, they destroyed this system. They destroyed it. See? So the destruction of crops, all that kind of stuff was done. But as the modern times begin to enter, the government hypocrite forces, because the Western forces put hypocrites into power. They didn't put the Kwame Nkrumahs in power anymore. They didn't put the Ezekwe, these kind of people like this, or Kenyatta, or any of our famous Lumbutu. I mean, all of these famous Africans. You don't put. They didn't never put those people back in power again. Those type of individuals. What we see today is these hypocrites that they have running the governments all over Africa. Not all, but a lot. And so they have caused this kind of situation. And the system that we enjoyed as Africans is gone. Under the democratic ways and means, it's gone. It's gone, brothers and sisters. The destruction of crops and all that. But our brothers begin, because they saw a way, because they begin to get upset with the Fulani, they begin to do things. The cattle would graze on farmlands till all the remaining crops were eaten. Now, here's the thing. The farmers would, they made their harvest. Okay, we say cassava. I'm just saying, for instance, or we just say pineapple. Okay, I'm just giving examples. They would leave their farmland open so for the Fulani herdsmen to come in, and the cattle would eat the remaining crops because the crops are damaged, and stuff like that. All the while, guess what our cattle did? They tilled the soil. They moved the soil around, right? And they fertilized it, right? See? So the farmers benefited from free tilling of the soil, and they benefited from the fertilizer coming from the manure of the cattle, right? See? And then they ate the crops. The Fulani benefited because they got good, nourishing crops that they didn't want because they were maybe, they had holes in it, or the birds ate some of it, or whatever the situation may be. But the cattle ate that. And then they left the land. And then the process over again. The rains come. And then, because of the nourishment of the land from the manure and everything else, the crops came back. See, this is the system that we have between the farmers and the herders. Beautiful system, brothers and sisters. Beautiful. And our people did this. We orchestrated that, not the Tubab. We did. We orchestrated this. Again, not the Tubab. Our people did this. See, that's why it worked. And what you see today, why it's not working, is because who orchestrated it? You, me? No, the Tubab and the hypocrites who follow them. I got to talk it as it is. I have to say it as it is as a Muslim. I must talk to you and give you the truth of the matter. What is happening in Ghana is because of the failed systems. They left this type of system that they had orchestrated. And the former Ghana president developed Kwame Nkrumah, one of our most brightest African modern time leaders, developed a system I will talk to you about that was beautiful, that enriched everybody, the farmer and the herdsman. I'll get into that, inshallah ta'ala. As farmers in modern times became greedy because of what has happened and rogue, they begin to change because the Sharia law was gone, okay? There's no more Sharia law anymore. Sharia law, Quranic law is gone, finished. So now they begin to take advantage because the government, hypocrite government officials, begin to make money as well. So what they start doing to the Fulani, this is what they start doing everywhere across the Sahel region. And our Fulani herdsmen will start to get taxed for things they didn't do or things that they was not agreed to. The farmers begin to say, okay, they call, hey, Yahya, you bring your 1,000 head of cattle. I got all these crops here. Okay, say, I got all these, I'm finished my harvest. I need you to come and for you to till the land and eat the rest of these damaged crops. I do it. The farmer turns around and gives me a bill and say, you know what? You just ate up all of my fresh crops, which they're not supposed to do. So you get double tax. This made the Fulani mad. This is what caused some of the problems. This led to the growing conflict that we see today because the farmers became greedy and they began to trick our herdsmen. And our herdsmen will come in and because of brotherhood, they said, the farmers say, hey, bro, come on, Yahya, please come, bring your 1,000 cattle, come on to my spread, eat up all these dead, because I finished my harvest. He said, okay, brother. And he did. And they come back and lie and say, oh, guess what? You ate up all my crops. You know the law now, the new law. You have to now pay me double the compensation. It's wrong. And this is what caused a big, big ruckus. The Ghanaian government, irrespective of Fulani being born in Ghana as outsiders, they begin to consider us that and not entitled to land. That also hurt us, even though we've been there for all these centuries. The climate change brought on a drought, drove the herdsmen to tropical outskirts of the forest. Now the cattle begin to go to further south. Now you think about this, the Sahel region, okay, brothers and sisters. Let me see if we get here. We get a map here now. Okay, here we go. If you look here, you see the map here of Mali. You see Nigeria, and you start going down, and then you see Nigeria, and then you see Togo and so forth. And then you see Ghana. Okay, there's in the north. There's a lot of savanna region there. Okay, a lot. Okay, there's a lot. So you can get the picture of that. What I was talking about. And so they begin to go into the tropical forest regions. This begin problems because as our brothers begin to grow cocoa that we eat, right? The cocoa, cocoa drinks and candy, this all over the world, everybody consumes this. They begin to grow this in the tropical areas. And unfortunately, the cattle started conflict and they begin to eat things. Because if you understand how cocoa grows, it's a very interesting product. I don't know if many of you understand how the cocoa got to West Africa. It was not native to West Africa. It was native to South America. Do you know that? And to Central America. That's right. What happened was when the Portuguese saw them use this product, they said, look, the climate is very similar in these areas. They brought the cocoa, and they threw it everywhere. And it took off, especially in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. In particular, those two places are the big supplier of cocoa in the world. It took off. They begin to see in the forest region, the cocoa start to grow by itself, okay? And I mean, it's just skyrocketed. Then begin to be harvested. You see what I mean? But anyone who understands how cocoa is grown, it's a very interesting product. You have to have a forest type environment, trees, and you have to put your seedlings under this shading for a couple of years until it grows. That's how cocoa is manufactured. The cattle come in and start to eat that. You see? This would cause the problem. The conflicts develop with farmers and tropical fruits because they begin to eat that stuff, cocoa, etc. As security forces begin to side the farmers and growers, they begin to kill the Fulani. Thus, extreme marginalization of the Fulani became acute. Before, we didn't have this. Anybody who's Fulani, they felt they had the right to kill them or jail them. This is what happened. This is a true fact. This will begin to happen in Ghana. Now, here's the funny thing. Remember, we've been talking for weeks about the Fulani and their mixing in Sudan. Remember we talked about that? There was no mixing in Ghana. That's very interesting, isn't it? And you have to understand, in Sudan, the mixing that went there is because they were herders as well. In northern Ghana, they were not necessarily herders, they were farmers. So the mixing between the two was very, very little. They mixed as far as, yes, the Muslims, they go pray Jumu'ah together, they go pray in the masjid together, but their sons and daughters did not marry. Islam brought them together, but they still had a caste system. The Fulani would not marry some of the ethnic groups and vice versa. If the son come on and say, look, I fell in love with this beautiful Fulani girl, even though she's a Muslimah, he said, no, you can't marry her. The Fulani said, hey, son, who you talking about? Hey, dad, I want to marry this girl. She's from this particular group here, from this village. Father said, no, she's not Fulani. It's over. This happened in that region. Unfortunately, this developed because of the animosities that have been transpired. They stopped the mix. They would not mix. The Fulani clans were listed in 1891 census. Now, I'm going back and forth because I'm giving you an overall picture. Many of the generations held Ghanaian passports. Recently, these passports were confiscated from our Fulani brothers. That's not right. That's not right. They confiscated that and told them that basically, you're not Ghanaians, even though they were born there. Their father was born there. Their great-great-grandfather was born in Ghana. Still, they said, no, if you're Fulani, you cannot have Ghanaian citizenship. You cannot have a Ghanaian passport. This is wrong. This was explained in great detail by our esteemed lobby group there in Ghana, the Tabata Pulaku International. They explained it very well about this. If you listen to their tapes, they talk about these problems like this that's going on in the community. From 2013 to the present, Fulani have been victims of wanton murder, okay? And the murders that were going on here, 10 here, 20 here, 30 here, 5 here, 6 here, see, 40 here, over the years, it started to accumulate over the years. The suspects remain free. No arrests were made or subsequent investigations. In 2022, as you heard me talk about, marauders killed Fulani families. And this was a gruesome attack. If you know about this particular attack, and there was another one that preceded this attack, can you believe what they did to one Fulani sister? She's dead, okay? She's dead now. You know, hey, Robert Jr. Here's what happened. They cut her in half. They cut her in half. Now, I want to say something about this. I want you guys to look at something here, okay? I want you guys to look at this. I want you to see this here. Not, excuse me, I got the wrong thing. That's our brother. Boy, where you at here? All right, boy, I made a mistake. Okay, I made a mistake here. Did you guys notice when I played the video, the faces of these miscreant security forces in Ghana who did the killing? If you looked at them, you saw something that was very interesting in their faces. Because the people who are doing this kind of murder, they cut the woman in half. They beheaded some. They shot some in close range. They cut this sister in half. Now, what human being does this? We're not cattle. We're not grazing animals. We're not pigs. They cut her in half. Who gets another human being and while they're alive and you throw them into a fire? These things these people were doing to us. They don't call this terrorism. I have a feeling in my heart these people are juju and obia and voodoo, even though they claim to be Christians, because who can get in this type of frenzy and go cut a woman in half? Who does that? Or behead the children, or get a woman and throw her into a big fire and roast her as though she's a pig, or the man and roast as a pig. This type of stuff is going on. And you have to ask, who are these people who do this? And you have to understand why the Islamic empires fought these kind of people. Because they knew that they had relationships with the devil. Because the devil instructs you to do things like this. Subhanahu wa ta'ala, or whatever name you want to call him, Jehovah or Yahweh, or any name you want to call him, he'd never instruct any of us to do what these guys have done to us. See, so we have to look at it from that standpoint. So, brothers and sisters, when we look at this issue, I talk in vain about this situation because Ghana presents a whole different ball game. There's no jihad there, but you see the smoldering things that's happening. Our brother here, Adib, he talks about the thing. Fulanis are regular victims of economically based stereotypes, prejudice, violence, discrimination in the Ghanaian society. He talks about in 2014, a lot of Fulanis were killed and their houses burned. He went on to talk about another 25 were killed weeks after that and were killed. And then he went fast forward to 2019, again in another village in a northern region, 68 homes of the Fulani were destroyed. In 2020, when he talks about again, Fulanis in the Chamba region, the northern district, were attacked and their cattle, numbering about 500, were killed. They killed 500 cattle, slaughtered them. And amongst other incidents, to date, families of victims are still anticipating justice. They're not getting the justice. With having they have lost hope. Some have completely lost hope. And some of the groups now are saying we should arm ourselves like they did in Nigeria, like they did in Niger, like they did in Mali. Ghana is a half step from that. If they begin to arm themselves, we're going to have a jihad in Ghana. And now you understand why. You get this straight from your brother here. When you hear something happen in Ghana, because it's not in the news, and all of a sudden you see CNN, you see hypocrite Africans and black folk from America talking crazy, talking about it's a violent jihad. The Muslims in Ghana are doing this. The Fulani. Now you understand why. I give you a small history what they've been doing to Fulani people. So when they take the jihad, you who are listening to this, don't echo what these brothers are saying about your brothers, the Fulani, because they have taken this stuff since roughly about 2010, okay? Slaughtering their cattle, burning out their homes, he says. He gives a good report. Then he says, the Fulani ask basic necessities, services such as giving a card, a registration card, they refused him. Healthcare, they refused to give Fulani. So when the Fulani woman, sister had babies, they had to have them in the open. They could not go to the health facilities because they would not take them in if they were Fulani. Who do that? What black man could do that to another black man? Who could do that? Now, passport acquisition, as I told you before, they stopped that. Fulanis in areas in the north especially, and other places of Ghana have allegedly had their Ghanaian passports seized. He talks about government offices here. When government officials, the Fulani, say we have a Fanti, a man Fanti, or ethnic group Fanti, okay, say for instance, for their Khan people. I'm just saying, for instance, he goes in for services. They list his name. His name is Kwame. The brother to his left, his name is Ahmed. He's Fulani. They deny this brother who's Fulani access to the same that his black brother Kwame is asking for. When Kwame says, my wife is ready to deliver a baby because his name is Kwame, they take him in. Ahmed, who's Fulani, also an African born in Ghana, okay? He says, my wife is ready to deliver. They won't give her the services. Brothers and sisters, this type of craziness and madness that I'm talking about now has happened all across the Sahel. Now you understand the Sahel region, why we have a jihad? You see what our brother said? He said, when you marginalize people and you take all their hope from them, they turn to the weapons, don't they? Now you understand why the Fulani are in jihad everywhere. Here's this brother's wife ready to deliver because his name is Ahmed, because he's Fulani. They tell him, no, he can't have the same service as his black brother's name, Kwame, who's Fanti, in Ghana, or a Khan in Ghana. He and both of them are Africans. See, this is what I'm talking about. Now you understand why there's a big jihad, these type of things here. And our brother, he's a scholar, a Fulani scholar. He explained the dirtiness of this. He says here, the marginalization is a major cause for insurgency. Our brother told it like it is. All the aforementioned, the killings, burning Fulani at the stake, getting Fulani people, men, women, children, as though they're animals, and roast them like it's barbecue and throwing them in fire. These are juju. These are juju people involved in voodoo and other things like this who do this. He talks about that. All that I talked about. He said, this is a major cause of insurgency. He's warned the Ghanaian government, you better put it into that. You heard my tape. You heard that police commander, what he said. He said, are the Fulanis better than us? Are the Fulanis better than us? He's actually going out telling them to kill the Fulani. But in this incident, the Fulani were waiting on them. And these Fulani, because they have been killed relentlessly by the security forces, they killed the officers when they came there. See, so they had no other choice. They had this self-defense. And our brothers they said, look, the government sent them to go to kill the Fulani. They met them force to force, and they had shootout, and some of the police were killed. And you heard what precipitated. You heard what this commander said. He told him, you see a Fulani with a gun, even if he's sitting at his house, protecting his house, you kill him. See, this is not right. Now, he goes on, talks about the relationship between the Afro-Tuareg and Afro-Arabs. The same thing happened to them in Mali. He talks about this issue. And again, the grievances. So he talked about that. He said the Ghanaian authorities need to do more to protect the minorities like the Fulani in the country so they don't become vulnerable to terrorists. Now, in this sense, he's talking about people who are extreme in their interpretations of jihad. And we have brothers like this, okay? They take it to the extreme. And I told you, we as Muslims, we have rules about engaging the enemy. We have strict rules. Our brothers who are extremists, they ignore these rules here. They're Muslims. No one can say they're not Muslims. But they are extreme because they take the Sharia and they say, look, I have a right because of this surah to kill these Fanti people. I have a right to kill the house of people because this is what they did. But the Sharia doesn't allow them to do that. See? And our extremist brothers ignore this other aspect of the Sharia to go kill. This is the difference, brothers. I'm giving it to you so you understand Islamically. When you listen to people called jihadists and terrorists, you got to understand something. Sheikh Gumi said it good. He said, one man's terrorist is a freedom fighter on the other hand. The brothers who protected their families and wives from being burnt at the stake from the security forces of Ghana, they're called terrorists. The security forces who've been killing them and the militias, they're not terrorists. You see, the Fulani know that these people were freedom fighters because they protected their cattle and their women folk and their children from being slaughtered by the security forces in Ghana. See, this is why we have to be very careful when we call me or any other Fulani a terrorist. We got to be very careful because we have to understand what's the context. If I'm sitting in my home here, I got my family here. Here's my wife, my children. Who are you among you going to tell me I'm not to protect myself from the Tuba or other black folk who's going to come to and take my wife and take my children and burn them at the stake? Who has the right? I would never come to any brother here or any brother and say, look, man, you're in Compton, you're in LA, you're in Baton Rouge. When the Tuba come, they come take you and your family, you don't fight back. I would never tell you never to do that because you have a human right to do that. See, so he went on and talks about these things. And he talks about something else that's interesting here. He says a lot of the Ghanaians need education because many of the Ghanaians forgot that there's a long history that happened in the modern day Ghana. He said they need education on the history of the Fulanis in Ghana. This would help to stem this, but they're not getting that because the news stations are one-sided. There's one article by this beautiful sister, okay? She's not Fulani, she's not Muslima, but she gave a good direct thing talking about the situation in Ghana in particular. And she talked about the need for the media to be fair. See, and they're not fair. And so he goes on to talks about the situation and whatnot. And he said the Fulanis are not foreigners. So he said, I appeal to the Ghanaian government to do more to curb impunity and safeguard the rights of minorities in Ghana. The government should foster deeper collaboration within the Fulani community in Ghana. Remember I told you it happened under the Sharia because of modern times, this has been wiped away. The Fulani family members shot at close range, burnt alive. This, as I told you, been going on and off since 2010, around 2013. This has been going on, okay? And it's atrocious. Cattle being rustled from us, so they take the wealth of our brothers. Again, marauders are not rested. This marginalization led to the retaliation in northern Ghana, and we talked about that. Now we start to see retaliation, and this is not good. We see the approach having that's smoldering. The Fulani jihad is close, brothers and sisters. I hate to say this, but the Fulani jihad in Ghana is close because of what I talked about. And I don't want to see that because Ghana is a beautiful country. All of the Sahel region and all of the Western states in Africa, we have beautiful states. We got beautiful people in there. I hate to see this, but you can't go and kill the most people who have been fighting jihad for 1,400 years and you go to kill them. What you expect them to do? They're going to fight you back. And we are trying to stop our brothers from joining ultra-violent extremist groups. But we're starting to lose the battle because the government has allowed marauders and others to do these things to us. Destroy all hopes of justice in the Ghanaians. Full of Ghanaians are lost hope because now there's no justice for them. And now the leaders are trying to keep a full-fledged Fulani jihad in Ghana, keep it at bay. And I'm hoping our brothers are successful, and I hope and pray, all of us pray, that they don't go to jihad in Ghana. We have seen the same pattern develop in the Sahel region, the Savannah region, the old age code regulations. You heard what I talked about, those regulations between the farmers and the Fulani, the beautiful system, how all were enriched, okay? Each one working at his strength, each one benefited the other. And when one erred, there was a Sharia court who made judgment between them, okay? We have written laws. It didn't change because somebody wanted to get rich. No, everybody was treated equally, see? So this is what we're talking about, established. And I'm hoping that we go back to this. The Fuller families, murdered farmers, we've been going through that, you see. The security forces, militias joined forces to maraud. I mean, this is going on all through the Sahel. And Ghana is no different. The Ghanaian media has added to the demonizing all the Fuller people, and one-sided reporting. They don't report when the Fulani were burned. When they took these Fulani and burned, they didn't report that. But when the Fulani went to retaliate, they reported that, see, and call it violent extremism. It's funny, isn't it? How it's always extreme when we go to fight to protect ourselves, but those who kill us is not extremism. The Fulani have been denied citizenship. We've been through that. You've seen what has happened with that. And the chief of the Council of the Fulani of Ghana made an interesting comment. He said that rats are given more security than they. This is what the chief Fulani, the imam, okay, the qaid in Arabic of the Fulani there in Ghana said that the rats are given more security than they are. This is coming from our esteemed brother, who's the commander or the headsman of all the Fulani there in Ghana. And this is what he said: the rats are given more security than they are. The police have commissioned. This is funny, we have to say something about that. This is very funny because. Excuse me there, brothers and sisters. Okay. Where we at here? Yeah. Okay. I don't know what's going on here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Excuse me. The police have commissioned an investigation last year, almost 2.5 years. Nothing came down. How is it they can't never find these people who have done the killings? They stole their cattle, and people are not cattle herders and wrestlers. I mean, they're not. So how do they sell this cattle and make all this money? How somebody who is dirt poor, okay, say a security man, he's making pennies a day. He steal the cattle. He killed the Fulani. He take 100 cattle and he sell them. Suddenly he walks over to the Bank of Ghana with $50,000 US in his pocket when he's been poor, and he puts it to account, and nobody suspects something's wrong. When this man is dirt poor, he's never had anything like this. Suddenly he comes in with $50,000 US. And he goes to open up a bank account. No one questions that. See? Because he stole the Fulani's cattle. He killed their people, burned them, okay, killed them, and then took their cattle and sold it and made $50,000 for it. See? This is the kind of stuff. But I want to get into something, brothers and sisters. I was adamant about this. I'll get to our brothers here in the comments in a minute. Please bear with me, dear brothers and sisters. I told you we have brilliant, beautiful African leaders of the past that were killed off by the West, namely the United States. Kwame Nkrumah, who he lived up to the Messina Code, okay? You remember the Messina group we have been talking about. I'll get into them another segment. This code of conduct that happened between the farmers and whatnot. But listen to what he did here. This is the brilliant of the African mind. He's not Fulani, but he's the African brother. But we have brilliant Africans in the past. We don't take a seat to nobody. Nobody. Kwame Nkrumah he developed a system. What he did, he diverted because there was some grumblings going on between farmers and herders. Okay, each one was claiming that they were being cheated out of their funds. Okay, from this code of regulations that happened back in the 1700s. Kwame Nkrumah, okay, said, here's what we'll do. The arriving herdsmen from Burkina Faso, because Burkina Faso, they go to their places, to graze, and then they come to Ghana to graze. Remember, I told you how how we do our grazing pattern, our cattlemen, what they do, because they know the climate and whatnot. They know that certain grazing areas will be beautiful and lush for them to eat certain times of the year. Remember, I told you that. And they know that the grazing is going between 3 to 6 months. After that, they have to stop to move on because they could damage the future crop. The Fulanis understand this. So the herdsmen came from Burkina Faso would arrive into, say, November, when now the grass is high and luscious, and graze until March. Okay, they would do this. The agreement stated that the Fulani would be allowed to go through a certain corridor. Now listen to this plan. This is beautiful, and it worked. The Fulani, instead of them going all over the place, they were allowed to go to a certain corridor. The government allowed, gave safe passages for their cattle. Nobody can mess with them. No farmers can mess with them. The farmers are on board on this, and they go through this corridor. They're tagged. They put something on each cattle as they went by to show that they've been inspected by the government, and the government has allowed them through this. The other part of this, they were stamped. The cattle would be vaccinated. The cattle found outside the coordinator, okay, again, if some rogue herdsman decided he wanted to go eat maybe Kwame's, his farmland, because his farmland is rich, full, say, cassava, say, for instance, his cattle like the cassava. I'm just using, for example, he bypasses corridor and he sends his cattle way out to go to feed, okay? He get caught, his cattle is now to be seized. This is the agreement. So the Fulanis begin to honor this agreement. Here is how this prospered. 60% of the older cattle, now say they brought 50,000, okay, 60% of the older cattle, okay, I'm talking about the old, they're going to die because they're old now. They would sell them to the government. The government would pay the Fulani. The government turned back around and took this cattle for meat and leather products. That's why the Ghanaian trade today is they prospered, especially years back, because they took a lot of leather. The Ghanaian leather for belts, certain type of clothing, shoes, lady purses. Where do you think that came from? It came from this agreement that Kwame Nkrumah orchestrated, where they took 60% of the old cattle, okay, who are old, they're old now. Okay, so now they're past their prime. The Fulani would give these cattle to the government, and the government would pay them a fee. So the Fulani were enriched from this. They benefited. Not only that, through this corridor, they went into areas that were protected by Kwame Nkrumah's government. They went there to graze, and they had stamps. Nobody messed with them. No security forces, no rogue militias or nothing. They grazed till March. You see what it said there. Until March, they grazed. Then the proceeds were given to the Fulani, and then the Ghanaian government established a leather trade, and the Ghanaians made millions. They sent this leather trade everywhere. This came from our cattle from the Fulani brothers. Because of this agreement, it was disbanded. It was disbanded. This system worked beautifully, and it propelled a market. And why we don't go back to that? You see, we've had these types of, codes of regulations that work. So, brothers and sisters, you saw that. I gave you this thing what's going on in Ghana. This is long. I understand that. But I want you to give you the ins and out so you can understand Ghana. So if something happened, you say, oh, I remember Sheikh Yahya when he talked about this, how they were burnt at the stake, how they were burnt out, how their cattle was stolen. And I give you history of how our brothers, brilliant mathematicians, brilliant philosophers, they saw Subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to them or something. The angels gave them ways and means to benefit the Africans. by this type of system here. Beautiful system. Beautiful system. Everybody benefited. Before Kwame Nkrumah, the old Messina Agreement, again, I'm going through what's happened. The Messina agreements, they would have this system where the Fulani would sell. They didn't have money per se, right? So they would trade in milk products, leather, of course, meat, dried meat, curded milk, cheese, all that. They would trade it for cassava, for jashin, for guava, for all kind of other products, okay? You see? And this system worked beautifully among our people. And everybody was happy and rich and fat from it because they ate good. See? Everybody. So we had that. And this system here has been thrown to the wolves. And now we got out now killing that's going on there. You see? And we have strife going on between farmers, and who got in between there to stop that? We have to ask that question. I'll let you answer that. You heard me talk about this for weeks, but I'll let you think about that. Who would stop something like this? Who benefit the Africans? Okay, brothers and sisters, let me see what our brothers here have to say. Oh, salam alaikum, my dear sister Amina. Thank you for showing up. And son of Adam, see what you have to say. Salam alaikum, walaikum salam. I'm Malik representing Yoruba, but I love and benefit a lot from your show. Thank you, my dear brother. Thank you very much for your kind words. And I try to give you the best I can. I try to give you what I understand and the history and what the words I got and so forth and so on. I try to be honest because I want our people to be led right. I don't want us people to be misled. And I want you to understand I want you to be proud to be African. I don't care if you're Yoruba. I don't care if you're Igbo or Fulani. It makes no difference. I want everybody to be empowered because we should be, because we're all brothers of one another in Africa. We're all black men. None of us are Tuba. We're black men. We're Africans. So I want that, to be permeated through us, that we understand that and we try to protect one another. African Maverick, it's been found now that the cattle caused overgrazing and land, which created desert. Brother, you got this right. Because of the system that's developed, the regulations were now thrown out. Rogue Fulani herdsmen who's supposed to stay in a region no more than 6 months, they stayed there 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, and they created with just what you said. Kwame Nkrumah knew this. The code of regulations of the Messina, they understood this. The famous original Fulani understood this. They would never stay longer than 6 months because of this situation. They would overgraze. And because of the regulations, the regulations are not right. We have a lot of this stuff happening. You're right, brother. You're right. You hit it right on the head. Overgrazing. You heard me say that. They should 3 to 6 month window. They should stay there to graze. Sometimes maybe a little less, according to the season. And and our people would have to look at the ground and say, it should be able to support us maybe for 4 months now, and they leave. But some stayed 8 months. Some stayed a year and longer. And then when they left, they created a desert because now the seed, everything, the sprouts are gone. See? So you're right on, brother. You got it right. How you doing, my dear brother? Andra, my dear brother, thank you very much for your kind words. Thank you very much for supporting me, brother. And our brother Marcus, we have the same issues in the States. Yeah, we have similar issues. The black man in America and the Fulani, there's a similarity in how we're treated and regarded. The black man is considered a suspect. The Fulani through the Sahel region is considered to be a suspect. He's considered, if you're Fulani, you automatically you're a terrorist, or you are quote unquote a jihadist. And we have this problem. The black man in America, when he leave his house, the Tuba policemen automatically assume I, who stepped out of my house, I just committed a crime. So they go after us. There in the Sahel, we have this problem. They learn that Fulani, 4 Fulani young men getting ready to go to the college are stopped. The police know that they're Fulani. Sometimes they execute them without cause, just like the police do to us in the United States. So we have this problem, and we have many similar issues like that. So this is something, brothers and sisters, and that is very, very telling for us. And I'm hoping inshallah, that in Ghana in particular, that, excuse me, it's almost time for me to pray now. I've been long today too, but I think it's worth it because we talked about the Ghana situation. Nobody talks much about this situation in Ghana. You don't hear much except one-sided. As our sister, I didn't have her article here. Our sister talked about the situation of one-sided reporting that we see in Nigeria. This is famous for that. Nigerians report only one side after the Fulanis do things, then they report that. But what happened to the Fulani before the retaliation, they didn't report that. See, so here we have issues that we have to look at and whatnot. And our brother here, if you guys understand the situation with the Fulani, but our herdsmen and so forth, it's a delicate system. And he hit it right. We have to be careful on how we graze. Okay, we have to be, when our cattle go across into an area, our experts, our brothers and sisters, they know the land very well, right? They know the land very well. So they have to look at it and they have to say, I think they can support the cattle. And say this year that he came back to northern Ghana. I say, for instance, last year when he came, maybe he had, say, 20,000. I'm just using for example. This year, because of the cattle ate very well, he has maybe 26,000 cattle. He has to account for that. Before, under 20,000 cattle, he could stay 5 months and he can graze very well. But because he has 26,000 cattle now, say for instance, he maybe only can graze up to 3 months and he must leave, or he'll have what our dear brother has told us here, overgrazing, which caused a desert. This is what has happened in many parts of the Sahel and made people angry because we have people overgrazing. But since there's no Sharia law, brothers and sisters, this is why we have this problem between the farmers and the herders today. The rogue herdsmen who do this, he would be called for and he had to hit a composition. If he overgrazed an area, he had to give cattle up as a punishment, okay, as a composition for what he did. This is how the Sharia worked. And the Fulani herdsman would pay whatever. If he had 20,000 cattle, maybe the punishment for this would be 5,000 cattle that would be given to the poor. This is how the Sharia worked for his dirty deed of overgrazing. See, this is how this worked. All this has been disbanded. That's why you hear me talk and scream against the democratic ways and means. It don't work. What regulations do we have now that matches what Kwame Nkrumah orchestrated? What do we have now that this accomplished to the Messina Emirate when they had the agreement between the farmers and the herders? It was working. What agreement our brothers in the sultanates had when they told the Fulani, you take your milk, you take your meat, your dried meat, your leather product, and you sell it to the farmers and to the town region, and the farmers in turn sell cassava, dashing, and banana, you see, and spices and so forth and so on like this to their brother. This system was back and forth, brothers and sisters. It worked. Somebody stopped it. The corridor system that was established by Kwame Nkrumah, it was stopped. This system worked. Everybody benefited from it. The leather market of Ghana took off because of Kwame Nkrumah's vision. It's been stopped. Now we have this problem, overgrazing. And then the farmer comes, he knows what's happened. He goes and shoot and kill maybe people in my clan who overgrazed. My clan turned back and go to kill farmers. See, so we have this, and this is the problem we have today, brothers and sisters. And it's very, very unfortunate, and so forth and so on. And I can't get over when I read, there's a lot other regulations that's been disbanded. I wanted to get into, but I'd be all day talking about this agreement. But you got the gist of how our brothers and sisters, how we did things in those days, how our brightest leaders were killed off for a reason, and who they put into power for a reason, and all these agreements now. If they went back to this simple agreement here that Kwame Nkrumah orchestrated, we have corridors all through Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, all the way across to the Savannah region, into northern Nigeria, into Chad. See, and we took our farmland, and we opened up a corridor. And you look at West Africa, you look at Mali across Niger, you see to northern Nigeria into Chad. And we opened up a corridor where the Fulani will bring their cattle through all these regions through a certain corridor. The governments will stamp them. They will let them graze, and they will monitor to make sure they don't overgraze. In turn, the older cattle, they're old men now, the old cattle, okay, or sick cattle, whatever the situation may be, they're sold to the governments. The governments pay compensation for it, they give to the Fulani. Then in turn, the governments take all this leather that they get and sell this leather in shoes and import it into Europe, purses, belts, wallets, all this type of stuff. This was generated because of that. See, so if we had the same quarter that we had those days, we would eliminate a lot of these problems. But someone stopped that. The Nigerian government wants blood. They want to fight and kill Fulanis. And other regions want to do the same thing. Ghana wants to kill, and they want the Fulani out, okay, all across the Sahel region. But our beautiful regulations that we had would stop the stuff. They stopped it because the democratic ways and means why I hate it, because it doesn't work. And this, you see the problem I presented to you today. And again, I know I was long, but I wanted you to understand the problem that we have that's in Ghana. And it's an old age problem, and it's indicative of the Sahel region and whatnot. And if our government there in Ghana does not wise up, we're going to have a full-fledged jihad, because they're killing too many Fulani there now in Ghana, and they have no hope. They took their citizenship from them. They can't get passports from them. They're marginalized. I told you the story of the Fulani. They can't go to the hospital. Their wives can't give birth, so now they got to go back in the open to have births. When a guy, his name is Kwame, he's a Khan or he's Fant, okay, or something like that. He comes in, his wife can get seen, she can have the baby in the facilities. The Fulani, the mother, she cannot. These type of stuff's got to stop. It's got to stop, brothers and sisters. This is happening in Ghana. These are black people. We can't blame Tubab in this regard. It's not the Tubab making discriminatory things in Mississippi. Here, we're talking about Ghana. This is discriminatory. This is another black man. His wife come in for a baby because he's Fulani. They said, no. You Fulani, your name is Ahmed, and you Fulani? No. Your wife can't have the baby here. Bad news. Not right. And this type of thing is going to cause a full-fledged jihad in Ghana. And this is what we talked about. So, my brothers and sisters, I will get into another aspect. I'll talk about the Fulani people in another aspect here in days, inshallah ta'ala, bi'ithnillah. I will talk about that. But I want to bring you up to speed, because you never hear anything about Ghana. Now you understand what's going on in Ghana. So one day you hear about a full-fledged jihad, you'll say, oh yeah, I heard about this. Now I understand why there's a jihad in Ghana. This is what they have done to the full of people. See, so you understand that. And now I hope I gave you that impetus for you to do your research and whatnot. And you know what? We have brilliant brothers and sisters, scholars. We should support them. We should get their works and learn from them. They're there, brothers and sisters. You do your research, you support them, and we need to protect them, because you'll find them being murdered, or somehow or another they end up in jail over some trumped up lie, because they don't want Fulani to have scholars, because our scholars have been brilliant since the 700s. They don't want to see that. So we should be supportive of our African scholars, period. If he's Wolof, or if he's Mandinka, or whatever, or Fant, make no difference. If he's a scholar, we should be supporting them, and we should be doing that. I got one more comment here. Okay, our sister says here. Okay, yeah, yes. We asked Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, yes, to protect Africa. Yes, this is what she's talking about here, brothers and sisters. She said in Arabic language, she's talking about we should be making a dua to ask Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for to protect Africa and to protect us, to protect this land. This is what she's talking about. Shukran jazilan, my dear sister Amina. So my brothers and sisters, and Marcus says, I see I guess he's understanding what's going on, and he's getting the picture. Now I'm hoping all of you here get the picture now what's happening in Ghana. You kind of starting to get, now you've been listening to my talks, you're starting to get to understand what's going on in the Sahel. you understand why there's a jihad now. See, not what CNN says. Now you have listened to your brother. I've given you what has happened to people. And I don't care if the people are in Compton or any other place, if they're in Baton Rouge or they're in Dallas, Texas. When you start going after black folk and killing them, okay, they're going to erupt, right? This is what has happened in the Sahel region, and we have this problem right now. So, my brothers and sisters, I will leave you with this and whatnot, and we'll see each other, inshallah ta'ala, and I'll give you another episode about the Sahel region, and I'm hoping that Subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless you and keep you safe, and that that you keep your families safe, and pray, brothers and sisters, and make sure your belief systems are up to par, because we never know when Subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to take us. It could be tonight, it could be tomorrow, it could be 2 weeks from now. So keep your prayers going, especially you Muslims. Keep your prayers going and keep going towards the right way, and pray for your brothers that are suffering in the Sahel region. And you think about this, and I'll leave you this, and you think about the sister here that happened here 6 months ago. They cut her in half. They cut her in half. Huh? You think about that. They cut her in half. And someone asked a question, why there's a jihad? They cut this beautiful sister in half, a young sister. You understand what they did? They took a machete and cut her in half. See, so this is why I'm saying, brothers and sisters, this has got to stop. And now you understand why we have this jihad. So I'll leave you with that. And I want you to ponder my words today, brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.